And then we have Spanish interpretation available, so I'm going to have our interpreters make an announcement about that.
Muy buenas tardes a todo el mundo, bienvenidos a la reunión. Esta noche tenemos interpretación disponible en Zoom. Abajo de la pantalla hay un globo terráqueo que dice Interpretation. Si necesitan interpretación en español, por favor señalen ahí y verán una opción para Spanish. Tienen que clicar en Spanish y en ese canal pueden escuchar el audio en español. Por favor, apaguen las cámaras para la reunión. Gracias.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Gabby, if you don't mind to go ahead and share your screen and let's get the presentation ready. My name is Tamika Brown. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for EPISD, and on behalf of our Board of Trustees and Interim Superintendent Sheffield, we are so glad that you're here and you want to hear all about the work that we've been doing in our local innovation committee to renew our Texas District of Innovation plan. So thank you for being here. We're so excited to share with you. I'm joined by Ceci Collins, our General Counsel. You will be hearing from her also, as well as many members of our local innovation committee, which we will introduce in just a moment as we are going through the presentation. We do want you to take advantage, if you need it, of the interpreters that are offering Spanish translation. And hopefully you were able to access that with the announcement that was made earlier. So without further ado, we will get started. We have a short presentation that we'll go through, talking through the work of the committee as well as the exemptions that we are looking at, and then we will open it up for Q&A at the end. So thanks again for being here. So let's talk about El Paso Independent School District. On the next slide, what you'll see is a visual with 5 different seats. And what we want you to know is that in EPISD, regardless of the school that you're in, regardless of the classroom that you're in, we want students to have an absolute wonderful experience. So the reason you see the variance in the seats is because we want you to understand that in EPISD, we want to have a great seat in every single classroom, in every single building. That is what we aim for every single day with every decision that we make and with everything that we do. On the next slide, we are currently ending our current strategic plan and in the process of looking at how to take this current plan and plan out for the next 3 years to 2023, 2024, what we want our strategic priorities to be. Currently, it is our goal to ensure that all of our students graduate from EPISD as critical, knowledgeable, and creative thinkers, informed problem solvers, effective bilingual communicators, responsible leaders and productive citizens, socially and emotionally intelligent individuals. When we talk to those of you who are here as community members, when we talk to business leaders, when we talk to parents, this is what we want for our students. This is what we want regardless of whether we have kids in elementary or kids in high school or even adult children. These are the things we want for our students. And so as a district, we strive every day to ensure we can accomplish these student learning goals. And we try to do that through 3 big focus areas: providing engaging and challenging learning environments, building strong supports. We want to make sure that the supports and the conditions are in place so that we can realize those student learning goals. And then finally, we're all the time looking at how we're going to modernize the learning environment. We're so fortunate in EPISD to be a one-to-one district, meaning all of our students have a device that they can learn from and with. And we have been a trendsetter and a trailblazer during this pandemic with the devices that have been issued to all of our students. We have iPads in the early elementary grades, and we have MacBooks from grades 3 all the way to grade 12. And so we're very excited that we are continuing to modernize learning environments to, again, make sure that we can reach our student learning goals. The vision in EPISD is to be a premier district, and will you go back one page? To be a premier educational institution, a source of pride and innovation, and the cornerstone of emerging economic opportunities, producing a 21st century workforce. This is what we're going toward. This is what we strive toward. And you can see that our strategic priorities are active learning, community partnerships, leading with character and ethics, and then great community schools. We continue to partner with you as our community to make all of this happen. So I'll turn it over to Sezi to talk more about why House Bill 1842 is important and why we're doing this work with the District of Innovation. Sezi?
Yes, good afternoon or good evening to everyone. Sezi Collins, I'm General Counsel with the district. In 2015, the 84th legislature passed House Bill 1842, which is now commonly known as Chapter 12A of the Texas Education Code. And at the time that this was passed, James Crow, who is the executive director of the Texas Association of School Boards, he made this comment about the importance of this, that for years, Texas school board members and administrators have complained about the ever-increasing number of state mandates and prescriptive laws and bemoaned the continual erosion of local control. Now there is a realistic process for districts to do something about this, take advantage, investigate the possibilities and potential of becoming a district of innovation. And next slide, please, Gabby. So the benefits of it, as Mr. Crow pointed out, is local control, customization, autonomy, and flexibility. Next slide, please. And so why is this important for independent school districts? Well, it gives you that charter-like flexibility that Mr. Crow talked about. And the fact is, if you don't use it, you don't get to take advantage of the flexibility and the important privilege. At the time it was passed, it was very, districts were very concerned that the legislature might overturn it in the next session, but that didn't actually end up happening. So, but it is a very important privilege for school districts to use. Next slide, please. So how is it that you can become a district of innovation and who can do it? Well, the reality is that you have to have at least an acceptable performance rating. You know, TEA in the Texas Education Code, there's an A through F system, and A through C are considered acceptable for this purpose. EPISD has a B. That rating reflects recognized performance. If you were a D or an F, you wouldn't be eligible, and you have to still be eligible at the time that the board takes the final vote to approve the plan. All right, next slide, please. So these are, in essence, the required steps. The board adopts a resolution to develop the local innovation plan. It approves the committee. The committee develops the local innovation plan. At some point, you give notification of TEA of the intention to vote on the proposed plan. That's the Board of Trustees. The final plan will have to be posted on the district's website for 30 days prior to a final vote by the board. The district improvement team, which is we call the DEIC here, they will hold a public meeting in which they vote on the plan, and that has to pass by a majority vote. And then the Board of Trustees will vote on the plan, and that has to pass by 2/3 of the membership. And what that means is right now, we have a board of 7 trustees. And so 2/3 of the membership means that we would actually have to have 5 positive votes to approve the plan. It's not just a majority of the quorum present and voting at the meeting. Next slide, please. So our committee The makeup is 20, originally the board approved a 21-member committee. We have actually one vacancy due to time commitment and time constraints of the appointees for those particular positions. The interim superintendent was given 7 appointees, and the trustees each got 2 each. And as you'll see later, Dr. Brown will introduce and let you know who everyone is on the committee, and if they're a community member or if they're a EPISD employee. But really, what does the committee have to do? Well, they need to be able to provide, have a plan that provides for a comprehensive educational program for the district. And some of the things that it may include are those that are listed on the screen. Innovative curriculum, instructional methods, things regarding community participation, governance, modifications to the school year or the school day, provisions regarding the budget, accountability and assessment measures, and any other innovation prescribed by the Board of Trustees. But what it must do is it has to identify requirements imposed by the Texas Education Code that inhibit the goals of the plan, from which that the district would be seeking exemption, and why. Next slide, please. So in the district's current District of Innovation plan, these are the exemptions that we have. We have an exemption from the minimum attendance for credit or final grade, which is the 90% rule, an exemption from the first day of instruction requirement, and an exemption from, and it's a limited exemption, and we'll go into this much further, the teacher certification for dual credit and career technical education instructors, the campus behavior coordinator designation, a limited exemption from teacher and administrator appraisals, and we'll go into depth into that. And then the preclusion from providing alternative uniform health coverage. Next, and we did that by amendment. So when the process started, the board passed this resolution on December 8th of 2020. And in the resolution, it gave the committee the parameters by which it wanted to be governed by. And in particular, in the highlighted area, the trustees specifically said that it did not desire the district to be exempted from any existing laws relating to teacher contracts or benefits, except to the extent that the education code precludes the district from providing alternative health coverage and making that available to its employees. So that's very important because those are the parameters under which that the committee had to govern itself by and had to conduct all of its work. Next slide, please. So there are a number of things. It's not like everything's a free for all, that you can just exempt yourself from everything in the Texas Education Code. I think when the law was initially passed, some people actually thought that and they just wanted out of everything. But there are a number of things that you can't do. You can't get rid of your Board of Trustees. You can't change the powers and the duties of the board or the superintendent or principals. You can't get out of the PEAN system. Of course, you need to continue to do criminal history checks. You need to still do the reporting for educator misconduct. There are curriculum and graduation requirements that you can't opt out of. Bilingual, special education, pre-kindergarten, there's things that we can't opt out with regards to those. Academic accountability, including student assessments, no opting out of that. Financial accountability and related reporting still applies. Of course, I don't know why anybody would want to, but you still need to report on improper relationships between employees and students. Obviously, we can't opt ourselves out of the Open Meetings Act or the Public Information Act. Nepotism requirements, certain purchasing requirements you can opt out of, but others you can't, and that includes conflicts of interest, and of course, civil immunity. And then finally is, we can only opt out of things that are in the education code, not things that not state laws, other state laws, or federal laws. Next slide, please. And so these are some of the most frequent exemptions according to the Texas Association of School Boards, and they kind of keep their finger on the pulse of this. Very common one is the first day of instruction, where the law says that you can't start school before the 4th Monday in August. Certification requirements, class size, the notice of the class size, and then the students teacher ratios. Next slide, please.
So what we'd like to do is introduce to you the committees that we have for our local innovation plan. And Gabby, if you will actually stop sharing for just a moment, and to our community, if you're using Zoom, you can put the Zoom on the gallery view so that you can see other members who are present in the meeting. And for those of you who are on the committee, if you will turn your cameras on, we'd love to introduce you so that our community can see who you are. When I call your name, I want you to wave so that our community can see who you are and the work that you have done. You've worked so hard over the last several weeks, on this plan, and we want our community to know who you are. First of all, we have the appointees from the interim superintendent, Vince Sheffield, Patty Cortez, our assistant superintendent for human resources. Patty, if you'll just wave, thank you so much. I'm Tamika Brown, the chief academic officer. Nancy Tovar, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Schools. I see Nancy there. Norma De La Rosa, President of El Paso Teachers Association. I saw Miss Norma. Ross Moore, President of El Paso American Federation of Teachers. I saw Mr. Moore. Laura Straussen Bagley. I don't know if she's here, but she's also a member of the committee. Martha Aguirre, Executive Director for Budget and External Financial Management. Martha, thank you for being here. And we also have our committee members that were appointed by our trustees. Gustavo Arriaga, he is Lead Program Manager at Southwest Region, Microsoft Philanthropies, TEALS program. That's a mouthful, Mr. Arriaga. Thank you for being here. Michael Martinez, City Manager for Sunland Park, New Mexico. Thank you for being here. Dr. Chavez, Dr. Sarah Chavez Gibson. She's a principal here at Stanton Elementary School. So glad to have her on the committee. Nancy Hanson, another principal here at Logan Elementary. Hey, Ms. Hanson, I see you there. Thank you. Ray Adalto, El Paso Association of Builders, has served on the committee. We're so glad to have him. Dow Farley is a retired teacher. We always love to hear from our retired teachers. They give a perspective that we all need to continue to listen to. So we were so happy to have him on the committee. Jessica Silva, librarian at El Paso High, was also a member of the committee. We're so glad that Jessica's here. Hey, Ms. Silva. Richard Gutierrez, UTEP professor, also served on the committee. Mari Van Pelt is a community member. So glad to have Mr. Van Pelt. Jonathan Childress, Community Engagement Manager, Microsoft Tech Spark Program. Mika Short, VP of Development at El Paso del Norte Community Foundation. Miss Dr. Deborah Fetzer, I saw Dr. Fetzer there. Youth Education Support Services Director at Fort Bliss. We're so happy that you have served and continue to serve on many committees. Thank you so much. And finally, but certainly not least, Dr. Elena Izquierdo, UTEP professor. I saw you, Dr. Izquierdo. We're so happy that all of our committee members have served over the last several weeks. And Gabby, if you will share the screen, I'd like for the community to see the meeting dates that we've had over the last several weeks. We've been meeting from 12 to 1:30 since February. We've been actively engaged in conversations around what's best for EPISD. We have, and this list identifies, all of the conversations we have had, all of the meetings we've had, and all of the conversations we've had since the start of our discussion on local innovation planning. So the next slide actually identifies what those meetings entailed. We explored districts across the state of Texas who are a couple of things. One, they are districts of innovation, but even more, they are districts that are similar in size to EPISD and also have an A or a B rating. Sezi talked about the A through F system that the state of Texas has. Well, all of these districts are similar in size to EPISD and also have an A or B rating. We wanted to see what kind of exemptions these districts were in their plans, local innovation plans. And we wanted to just have dialogue and discussions around how those innovations either fit what we're doing or whether we, like we did before, are still blazing the trail, because EPISD definitely blazed the trail with the first local innovation plan that was published and approved by the board. So we wanted to give you just a preview of who was on our committee and how we engaged in the work over this last several weeks on Wednesday, just talking about our current exemptions, what we want to do going forward, and how other districts across the state have engaged in this work around the local innovation plan. Next slide, Gabby.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the proposed local innovation plan exemptions. The first one is the minimum attendance for class credit or final grade. This is commonly known as the 90% rule, because the law requires that students attend class 90% of the time that a class is offered in order to earn credit or a final grade. And this law, the committee felt, really puts value on seat time rather than content mastery. And if we were to exempt ourselves from this, this would allow the district not to have to penalize students who miss class due to extracurricular activities, academic activities, or other extenuating circumstances. And it really allows the district to promote student engagement in these kind of activities, as well as social and emotional development, by encouraging students to participate in such activities and still getting credit and having it be awarded on content mastery. The one thing that you should know about this exemption, it doesn't take us out or alter the existing rules with regards to compulsory attendance. It doesn't change UIL rules. In no way modifies a teacher's right to determine the finality of a grade or to restrict or alter a teacher's right to assign grades in accordance with the code. I know that we have a few members. If you could unmute, Gabby, please. Mr. Moore, Ms. De La Rosa, Mr. Martinez, and Dr. Izquierdo. I do want to, there are volunteers from the committee to speak today, and I wanted to see if any of them wanted to speak about this exemption or give their thoughts on the discussions that the committee had.
Norma, you want to go first, or? Okay. One of the things on this, and it was really important both last time we did this and this time, is the finality of teachers' grades. That was an important right of teachers, a necessary right of teachers that both Norma and I protected last time around. It's in this time around. So if you're a teacher or a community member and hear that this is taking away control of your grade book, that's just a rumor and it's false. This worked last time, it works this time.
And basically what we wanted to do is we also wanted to ensure that our students that are involved in other activities outside of the classroom but are school related, such as athletics, UIL, band, and all of those extracurricular activities, many times they were having to miss a lot of class because of the timeframes that they had to leave school to get to their destination, or were out of town for contests and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that that they were not penalized based on absences, because they really were in essence not absence. It was an excused absence because they were doing something that was school related. And so we wanted to protect the students as well as that with their grades and their attendance in that respect.
Mr. Martinez or Dr. Izquierdo, any comments on this one?
No, I totally support what both Ross and Norma have said 100%. I think that was our discussion. Good.
Yes, no, I agree. And I think that they captured the parental perspective as well. Having our kids be well-rounded and wanting them to be involved in those aspects, I think gives that freedom to parents to make sure that they're pushing their kids as well. And they don't have to fear any retribution on the side of the school side of missing class. So it's definitely helpful from that perspective.
Thank you all for those comments. So the next exemption to be sought is the first day of instruction. And this relates to code section 25.0811, which prohibits the district for beginning instruction before the fourth Monday in August. And the rationale for this is wanting to have flexibility to start earlier in the calendar year to improve active learning by balancing the amount of instructional time in the semesters. It would give teachers the opportunity to better pace and deliver instruction before and after the winter break. In addition, it gives us flexibility to start and end the school year earlier. Students can enroll in college courses that may start as early in June, and thereby that would increase college and career readiness. And then, of course, the idea of helping students that are transitioning from elementary school to middle school, and then from middle to high school, to promote the social and emotional learning by giving those students additional time and support in getting adjusted to their new campus environments. So for the committee members, any comment on this one?
Well, I'd like to say that this is extremely important right now, especially with the kind of year that we've had, you know, in teaching and learning. And so really focusing on the quality that we're doing here and the time and using it, you know, precisely and wisely, and promoting, right? Promoting a very healthy start for our students is very important.
Yeah, and I think this item touches on all four of the four key points that the committee was kind of assigned to look at, from local control and alignment that we want to be able to provide for families and teachers, the customization piece that you already talked about, Ceci, as well as the autonomy and flexibility from the scheduling aspect. And so I think that was a very important piece for the entire committee as well.
Dr. Brown, one thing, and I'm going to speak from my experience as a social studies teacher up at Andrus, the balancing of this balances the semesters. And in social studies and other fields, there are classes that are not full year classes, but they're single semester classes. For example, US government is normally taught in the fall to seniors, and economics in the spring. When you have the TEKS, the Texas Essential Knowledges and Skills, for US government, under the old system, you had to rush and honestly shortchange the kids their instruction in US government, which reduce, that impacts on their ability to be contributing informed citizens. And other fields, English, science, also were caught in the same boat of having shortchange on one class and an extended period on the other, but you still were required, and the students were required, to master the TEKS.
Thank you all for those comments. I'm sorry, Ms. De La Rosa, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that as a middle school teacher, is that it helped to balance the semesters, because then we didn't feel so rushed to have to during the second semester. First semester was very, their days were shorter in the first semester because of Christmas and Thanksgiving, a lot of holidays fall within the first semester. And so what you didn't do, you had to catch up with the second semester. So the second semester was very heavy for the teachers and the students as well. So by doing this, it allowed the semesters to be balanced with hopefully it doesn't always work that way. It's not always perfect that way, but there's a little bit better control in trying to have the same number of academic days in the spring and in the fall. So it's easier to plan instruction accordingingly for our students.
Thank you all for those comments. The next exemption that that the committee is seeking is a limited exemption from teacher certification for dual credit and career and technical instructors. The code sections here that are listed, the committee felt limit the district's ability to hire non-certified teachers to teach hard to fill, high demand, dual credit and career, technical and STEAM courses, but only when high quality certified teachers are not available. So this would be a limited exemption at that point. This would give the district the flexibility to hire credentialed community college instructors or university professors in specific content areas to afford more students the opportunity to take dual credit courses. But only if certified teachers are not available to teach those courses. And then of course it would provide flexibility to hire professionals in certain trades, such as welding or fine arts, in career and technical and STEAM courses, only if certified teachers are not available to teach those courses. It gives the district the opportunity to establish its own local qualification requirements for such courses in lieu of the requirements set forth in the law. And on the call today is Patricia Cortez, who is our Assistant Superintendent of HR. And Ms. Cortez, I don't know if you have a comment on this particular exemption.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. I think you outlined it very well. I think that this option has been available to us. However, we really haven't had the need to utilize it. And I think we agreed as a committee that we would always try our best to ensure that we are applying the certification requirement, that we want the background that comes with that certification in terms of pedagogy and TEKS and really just that experience of the teacher in the classroom. But continuing with this option provides us the opportunity if ever needed. And we had discussion about other methods in which we've had maybe some support from non-certified personnel that are assisting the teacher. However, we still maintain with the certified teacher as the teacher of record. And so I think that from the HR standpoint, it's an option that we're recommending we continue with. However, it is not our first option. It would never be our plan A. Continue to seek certification, even if it's through the alternative certification programs.
Thank you very much. Any others from the committee that would like to comment on this?
We just wanted to make sure that that this was not used as a substitute to just hire teachers or people in the classroom. So we have, Ross and I, through our organizations, have also held the district to make sure that all of the teachers that are hired for our classrooms, that they are certified teachers. And, and again, we understand that with some of the new courses that the district is adding to the curriculum, some of them are new, or because we've never offered them, our teachers have not gone through that certification. And so we highly encourage our teachers that are interested to go and get that certification. But we also maintain that this is not intended to not have certified teachers in the classroom teaching all of our students.
The benefit I see also, and I was very leery of this, but it's my understanding, not only has it not been abused, Patty, I don't think anybody's actually been hired under this, have they?
no one has been hired under this.
And benefit to the district is when you look at the career and technology courses, a master welder, a master electrician, the kind of folks that are needed to train students in these. One, they've been training, if they're a master, already or teaching in apprenticeship programs to youngers, and it's their skill. They may not have a piece of paper, but they know the skill and they know how to teach it and build careers other than college bound kids. And right now, for example, a apprentice electrician, which can be done, they make $60K a year and they have no college debt. That's a pretty good deal. So I look at this as a benefit for the district and a benefit for the kids opening those doors.
Mr. Martinez or Dr. Izquierdo, any comments at this point?
Yeah, from the university perspective, I think it really does also, motivate us to work together to try to prepare more of these candidates that we need, in districts. But we also appreciate the flexibility here. It's important because we compete with several districts in the area, and not only in El Paso, but across the state. So maybe we haven't hired anyone yet this way, but it's good. It's a good backup to have in case we do need it. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to comment that this specific exemption was a real learning experience for me when we did an evaluation throughout when we were doing evaluations of these items. Specifically knowing that it's limited to dual credit and career and technical educators. As Ross mentioned, you have qualified hands-on individuals that are coming in from the technical aspects that we're looking towards. As Ms. De La Rosa also mentioned, specifically in high-level areas, this isn't a replacement, but this is an area where you can identify local community members that may already be teaching at the university or at the community college level that would be able to step in immediately to address our students' needs. And I think ultimately that's the most important part, that we're addressing the students' needs at that point in time while still protecting our teachers. And I think that's an amazing point that should be made to the rest of the community to understand and to the rest of the district. So I was excited when I learned about this and that there's something out there that helps our kids learn at a much higher level when we can't identify a certified teacher. So just wanted to communicate that as well.
Thank you very much to all of you for those comments. So the next proposed exemption is the designation of the campus behavior coordinator. This provision of the code requires one person at each campus to be designated to serve as the campus behavior coordinator. And what this does is it restricts the district's ability to promote a more collaborative discipline program by allowing the district to determine how to delegate or distribute disciplinary responsibilities and authorities at its schools. And as a matter of fact, it would be overwhelming for one person to be able to do it at our high schools and probably even at our middle schools, because right now those duties and responsibilities are spread about. So this would allow the district to focus on establishing classroom protocols and utilizing school culture to foster the development of individual responsibility, positive behavioral interventions and supports while encouraging social and emotional development of each student and their responsibility towards the community. I believe Ms. Felder, Cheryl Felder, our Executive Director of Student and Parent Services, may have joined us. And Ms. Felder, are you on? Well, maybe not. All right, then Ross, Moore, Ms. De La Rosa, Mr. Martinez, or Dr. Izquierdo, would you like to make a comment on this particular exemption?
I'm glad to see that we have this in place. I know the district has worked very, very focused on the social emotional teaching and learning that has to go on here for our kid and holistic education. And so looking at more restorative ways of working with students and discipline and behavior, I think is a real positive. And so I think the progress that has been made, the efforts that have been put in there need to continue.
I think the part that I liked most about this exemption is the ability for the autonomy and the customization within the school culture to be able to address these issues and really putting it back into the school specific to address these issues. And so I think there's no one way to fix every problem, and this allows us to adapt to the students' needs as well. So I thought that was a positive.
Thank you very much for those comments. The next exemption is dealing with teacher and administrator appraisals. Don't go crazy because the proposal is not to get rid of those, but it is to make sure to the extent that these code sections require that state standardized test scores be used as one of the evaluation measures for teachers or administrators, that the district exempts itself from that. So what they would like to, the rationale is really to help promote professional development that focuses on individual growth. The district needs to maintain local flexibility to continue its current practices of using different measures or various measures, including multiple observations, goal setting and tracking, student growth progress toward learning objectives, and evaluation measures on their appraisals. So it's a very limited exemption. It's only to the extent that the laws require the use of state standardized test scores. And I believe probably Ms. De La Rosa, Mr. Moore, have some comments on that to go into further. And so I'll let them go ahead and give their opinions on this one.
What this does is, it may seem like a small thing, but if you're in a classroom or you're on a campus, that exemption is huge. What it does is it ends the old Garcia era, teach to the test and nothing but the test standards. And when you go to, because it takes test scores out of my members' evaluations. They're actually evaluated on how well they teach and how well they plan for teaching, not a standardized test. And in many districts that have used standardized tests, band teachers were evaluated based on how well their kids did on math scores and reading scores, which makes no sense whatsoever. What it does to the culture of a district and a campus is turns it into a cutthroat me against you. I don't want to get stuck with the hard to teach kids because I'm going to get hurt on my evaluations. Principals are thinking the same thing. And in the long run, everybody, the kids lose, teachers lose, administrators lose, parents lose. And, we lost under Dr. Garcia and his Teach to the Test program. This is something worth fighting for, folks. It's a good innovation and exemption.
And basically what it allows teachers to do is to, as they go through that year, all of our students learn differently. And we all know that all of our students test very differently. There are some who test very well, and there are others who do not test very well. But that does not mean that those students do not know the content and have not mastered the content, which allows for teachers to be able to assess the growth of students throughout the year without the use of standardized tests being part of that evaluation, because then it allows the teachers to really focus on that growth of students, using the methodology and the pedagogy and using the tools that they have to work with students on an individual basis. And so taking that, it takes a lot of weight off of a teacher, knowing that what they're going to be evaluated on is really how the students have learned and how much they have grown from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and not using one measure or one standard of measure, which is the STAR test, which is not a good measure anyway of a student's growth, because we know a lot of our students have mastered a lot of their content, but don't do well on tests. And Dr. Izquierdo will also be able to tell you that even when they get to college, There are a
Right.
lot of students at the college level who freeze on tests and don't do well on tests. But I'm sure that our college professors can attest to the fact that they know the material, they understand it very well. The test did not show that that's what was really happening.
Absolutely.
Mr. Martinez or Dr. Izquierdo, any comments here?
No, I just want to echo what everyone else has said on this. It really begs the question of, well, where does standardized testing results sit? How do we look at it, right? So it is a conversation that we need to continue having because we are measured that way as a state. So we have to keep looking at it, but its validity in terms of what our kids really know and learn and what our teachers do. I think the focus on, progress measuring and monitoring and all that is extremely a lot more valuable than just one test. So this is good.
I think this is a tool that empowers teachers to be able to teach to the students. I think it allows our students to be successful in a much better way and our teachers to be able to show the progress of the students throughout the year. So I was excited. I really enjoyed hearing the back and forth on this one as well.
Thank you all for those comments. So the next exemption that we're going to talk about is the alternative group health coverage. There's a section in the code that prohibits a school district from making alternative group health coverage available to its employees after the date that the district entered into or opted into TRS Active Care. As a large district, EPISD didn't have to opt into TRS Active Care. For years, the district had its own self-funded plan. And when EPISD opted into TRS Active Care, there is no mechanism to get out of it completely. The law doesn't allow that, and that's contained partially in the insurance code, so it's not something that we can totally opt out of. But this was a way to allow the district to have a dual health benefit program that where the district could provide better benefits for its employees at a lower cost. And so the district took advantage of this exemption in the prior plan. And this will give the district the ability to continue that self-funded plan and hopefully be more responsive to employee and community needs. Any comment on this particular section?
I just want to say that I think this is a win-win for teachers and for taxpayers. The district as a whole benefits. Teachers get the better health coverage while taxpayers get the best deal for themselves. And so I think it's a clear win-win, and to be able to provide better resources to our teachers is ultimately what we want to do.
And this definitely allows for local control in regards to the insurance, because when there was only TRS, the TRS board, governing board, every summer meets, and every summer the rates that employees had to pay as far as premiums and so forth would go up every year. And there was not any ability for any district that's on TRS Active Care, to turn around and tell the governing board, oh, no, you all raised the rates last year, you can't do it again, because they had no say whatsoever in what the TRS governing board did with TRS Active Care. And this was causing a major impact on the financial stability of many of our employees, to the point that many of our employees, particularly our hourly employees, had no health insurance whatsoever because they couldn't afford it. It was that expensive. So being able to opt out of this, or well, not opt out of it, but have an alternative and allow the district to offer the two and give employees the opportunity to choose one over the other, is definitely a much better deal than just being confined to only one insurance carrier.
I'm going to speak very bluntly. Without this exemption, my members' health care goes up. It's not just hourlies that are affected by this. Under TRS, it was rapidly turning into their monthly insurance premium was greater than their house payments. Without this exemption, employees are going to go, we're going to lose our quality employees as they go to districts that provide better, lower cost healthcare coverage. Without this, my members' rates go up. And I can't, that is something I will fight for. Not the rates going up, the rates staying low.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So all of the exemptions or the proposed exemptions that we just covered are in EPISD's current District of Innovation Plan. The committee, in our next slide, please, Gabby, debated over this next one for a long time. And this is the section that deals with visits to accredited institutions of higher education. And in the code, it provides that a district may excuse a student from attending school to visit an institution of higher education during the student's junior or senior years of high school for the purposes of determining the student's interest in attending the institution or the university. But it says that you can only excuse for this purpose, you can't do more than 2 days during a student's junior year and 2 days in a student's senior year. So the committee recognized the importance of visits to institutions and universities that can be pivotal in a student's decision to apply, to higher education. And they thought that increasing the number of days may increase a student's interest and increase the college career and military readiness rate for the district. In addition, they thought that the flexibility of an additional day would allow students additional travel time for long distance out-of-state visits. And so basically what the committee determined is that they would like this exemption to allow for the flexibility for up to 3 days during a student's junior year and 3 days during the student's senior year, of course, with administrative approval. The committee totally understands that this exemption we can't alter the state's funding provisions by this. So by offering a 3rd day, it doesn't mean that the district will be funded for that 3rd day. So that there will be some financial impact with regards to this. But in looking at the statistics that Ms. Felder gave the committee in her discussion, it did not appear that it would be overwhelming. In the next slide, please, Yami. And the one thing that the district is not, or the committee is not seeking to exempt itself from is the ability to create a policy, to determine when an absence will be excused for this purpose, or from creating a procedure to verify a student's visit at an institution of higher education. So that in a nutshell explains this exemption, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the 4 members again to talk about it and from their perspective and what was discussed.
I'll just stress that it's a very, very important part of a student's, trajectory to have these opportunities, to be able to go out and see, their college or the opportunities or the benefits that they get in any college. And so I think it's a great, balance there going from 2 to 3. And I agree. I think it was Ross Moore who brought up the point that some places are a lot further than others, and it takes you a whole day from El Paso, right, to travel to some of these places. So that flexibility, I think, will be very useful. Sorry, Michael, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. I also want to say that this was also a learning point for me. Understanding that there's currently a process for some students to do this already, and that the district's encouraging this. But I think allowing for multiple travel, as Ross mentioned, with flights and how to get to certain places during the discussion, and how it was difficult, I think, from one place to another, and it takes multiple hours to travel. But even from a driving perspective, I think being able to schedule trips, whether you're looking at Texas, whether you're looking at the West Coast, whatever it may be, 2 days is an extremely difficult amount of time to to get all over the place. And I think the extra days per year will allow for more capabilities to set up different tours during the week, so that people can actually catch the different activities by the university. So.
And it would allow the students that are going to make the college visits to look at it from several perspectives before they make their final decision as to where it is that they would like to go. And so those college visits are extremely important for those students that are looking at various colleges, and it'll also give them time to also talk to people on campus, whether it's other students that are there on campus or some of the faculty, professors, and so forth, to see if that really, if they do have the kind of program that they really are looking for, so that they do make that very educated decision about where it is that they want to go to school.
And Ms. Felder, I believe you're on the line. Would you talk about the importance of the third day being an excused absence, and how that can affect a student with regards to exam exemptions and things like that?
Yes. Currently, the district has a final exam exemption for high school students. So if they have 3 absences or less, they can receive an exemption from taking the final at the end of the semester. And this was implemented to encourage them to attend and increase learning and participation in class. So if we don't allow an exemption for college visits for 3 days, then it means it would knock the student out of an opportunity to receive an exemption on a final exam. So if you have an A student who goes in, they meet the GPA, the grade requirement for the class, but they've been absent for 3 days, then that would knock them out of having an opportunity to be exempted from the final exam.
Okay, thank you all for those comments. Thank you, Ms. Felder. The next slide, please, Gabby. Really, those are the exemptions that the committee is proposing in the proposed plan. It was the plan itself was posted with this agenda. This is really the timeline that the committee's been working under. We started in December when the board passed the resolution. Then in January, the board approved and announced the members of the committee. Since this says January, but really since beginning of February is when the committee started working, and we will have another meeting next week. On April 9th, we're hoping to post the final plan for consideration on the website for at least 30 days before the board takes the final vote. At our April board meeting, the trustees will vote to notify TEA of its intention to vote on the proposed plan. And in May, sometime the DEIC, the DEAC, will hold a public meeting and vote on the plan. It's important to note with the DEAC, that only requires a majority vote and of the members, whereas when the board votes, the Board of Trustees votes in May at our May 11th meeting, it needs to be 2/3 of the membership of the board. So as I may have mentioned earlier, 7-member board, we have to have at least 5 positive votes for the plan to pass. So Dr. Brown.
So thank you to all of our committee members for providing insight to our community, how we arrived at this to this place where we are with the local innovation plan. At this time, we do want to open it up. If Gabby, if you will stop sharing at this time, and again, if you want to put your screen on the gallery view so that you can see everyone across the meeting. If you have a question as a community member, if you turn on your camera, that would be our indication that you have a question, and we will unmute you and allow you to ask us a question about the plan, the process, or any other question you may have about our work around the local innovation plan. Ceci, you're muted. I think you were talking, but you were muted.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I think if you raise your hand, that kind of give us some indication that you have a question. Because I'm not seeing anyone with a question right now. Okay. Dr. Brown, are you seeing anybody? Gabby, do you see any hands raised?
I don't see.
Oh, there we go. Mr. Miranda. I apologize. I was looking for the hand. You're muted. Could Gabby, would you please unmute Javier Miranda? Do you see him? He's in the third column, Gabby?
Yeah, I'm unmuting you. Just go ahead and click that button right there. See that where it says, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have a series of questions I was hoping to post in the chat so as not to take too much time, but the chat is disabled.
Right, go ahead and ask your questions.
Oh, I can't, okay.
Yeah, you may ask your questions, of course.
All right, so I got a series of 4 questions here. So first of all, would you be kind enough to discuss the specific initiatives already implemented and the correlating measures implemented during the first phase of our district's engagement? That's one. I got 4. The second one, what provisions are associated with potential charter school organizations? What are they in place? So, for example, concern abounds that the TA's support of hybrid instructional models, which merits consideration of our district's current bandwidth capacity, that perhaps we might have to outsource to schools like IDEA, right? So what safeguards are in place right now to ensure that federal and state funding typically received by our district is not diverted to charter school organizations? The third one, that one has to do with the campus behavior coordinator. What specific qualifications are required for the campus coordinator? The school to prison pipeline elements currently in our disciplinary system are of concern. So to the comment of one of the panelists, what would be the specific tailored steps that he addressed that would meet the needs of our kids? And then lastly, will the current address this, says he, but will the current board be voting to approve, or will the incoming trustees be allowed to deliberate at the renewal process at that May 11th, if I understood that correctly? And that is considering that there's going to be a possibility of a runoff. So those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, so I think I got all 3 of your questions, Mr. Miranda, and I apologize. Could you go back to the first question because I did not catch it?
The first question, okay, so this is our second phase of our District of Innovation, right? So as a school teacher and as a parent and as a community member, I have not seen anything of measurable progress in our district. It just seems like it's been a district of waivers rather than innovations at this point. And so what I'm asking is, what are the previous initiatives that have been successful that perhaps I don't know about or we don't know about?
Okay, so let me take that one first. I think I might be able to answer that, and I think that we tried to cover this and was discussed by some of the comments of the people that were on the committee. But with the first one, your first question, the 90% rule, for example, we're not constrained by it. A student doesn't have to be in the seat time, attend class 90% of the time that a class is offered in order to get credit. Also, it frees the district from having to comply with a very onerous process that was in place before. And that was one of the things that that was becoming difficult and almost a gotcha moment for the district in years past. And when the District of Innovation process began in 2015, that was one of the things that the board specifically said, the board at that time specifically said that it wanted to opt out of. Secondly, the first day of instruction, I don't believe that the first year that we opted out of that particular provision where instruction could begin before the fourth Monday in August, we kind of had to slowly move our district into it because teachers weren't, parents weren't ready for it. We got some feedback from the community that starting earlier was hurting vacation plans and things that had already been in place. So with regards to that one, I believe that you heard Ms. Cortez talk about the importance of having something in the toolbox about the teacher certification on dual credit and career technology educators. She said it's an important tool. Dr. Izquierdo talked about it as well. And both Ms. De La Rosa and Mr. Moore talked about how they saw it as a benefit, but it certainly wasn't something that was taking away from teachers. And for the campus behavior coordinator, that we've basically been freed up from just having one person in charge of that. I know with your question, because you also had a question about, what is the qualification of the people that do that? I believe in the high schools, they're all APs, so it's the qualifications of the APs. I'll let Ms. Felder talk a little bit more about that question when we get to it. And then, of course, you heard about the appraisals of teachers and administrators. I mean, literally what we've done is that we've excluded the standardized test scores as one of the measures. And the district's been doing that since this plan has been put in place. And then also the self-funded plan for insurance. So your question, so I think that all of those things have been taking place since the plan's been put in place from 5 years ago, except for, the kind of the phasing in the fourth Monday in August was a tough pill for the community to swallow at the beginning, but we've been doing it ever since. I hope I answered your first question. Your second question, I believe you made a comment about state and federal funding and what are we doing about that. Unfortunately, in the District of Innovation process, we only get to opt out of things that are in the education code, and the education code can't alter, and through the District of Innovation process, we can't alter anything with regards to state and federal funding. We can't do anything. We're literally, you're constrained. The process is identify something in the education code that hasn't been taken off the table by TEA or by the legislature in the process. What are those things that would inhibit the goal of the plan? And so that's what we try to do, is we try to, in every single one of these exemptions, indicate what is the rationale behind it, and what is the reason that we need to get out from under the particular provision in the education code. But it's a very, I will admit, there are a lot of things that I think districts would like to get out of from underneath in the education code that you can't, through the process, exempt yourself from. And I think your third question, or the fourth question, was, are the trustees going to vote on this on May 11th? Yes, it goes to the board on May 11th, and that's when the board will consider it. When we took it to the board at the very beginning to start the innovation process, there was a timeline that was presented to the board with regards to it going at the May meeting. That meeting actually was supposed to be a little bit later in the month, but it got moved up for various reasons. And so the board will take it up at the May 11th meeting. Yes. And I hope I answered all those questions. I don't know if somebody else from the committee wanted to, or Dr. Brown, if you had any comments.
Yeah,
I
the only
missed
thing I'll
something.
add, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Miranda, for your questions. I think it's important to note that this process to become a district of innovation, it gives charter-like flexibility, but in no way are we creating a pathway to charter with this work. Like we are seeking exemptions that will allow our public school to excel. And we have, I think our committee did a really good job of, thinking through why all of these exemptions will benefit the students, the teachers, and the families in APISD. And I think our board and our community hopefully will also see that we've done due diligence with, just really thinking through the exemptions and applying for that as a district, that status of district of innovation.
Do you want me to answer the behavior coordinator question, Sezzy?
Yes, please, Ms.
Okay.
Felder.
Hi, Mr. Miranda. In terms of the behavior coordinator, TEA and the statutes, it says that an administrator can be selected as the coordinator. In our district, all of our assistant principals have master's degrees. And Patty and Nancy can correct me in administration. So only in our district, only individuals who are assigned as a campus assistant principal or principal can issue discipline consequences for our students. They're the ones that review and establish a plan. And every year they have to develop a campus plan of discipline. They have to look at their previous year infractions and come up with a plan of action to take care of those, which includes counseling. It includes inviting individuals to talk to the students about bullying, how to behave at campus, and what they expect out of a student. In addition to that, we have an SEL program that you've heard about, and that's interactive with the student discipline. And our administrators, unless it's a mandatory, they have many options when it comes to disciplining a student. Now, Texas does have a long list of mandatory requirements, what is called disciplinary alternative programs, and also expulsion. So with those mandatory offenses, we have a set due process where we have to have a hearing and allow the parent to appeal that. And the appeals go through the assistant superintendents along with Dr. Gonzalez. So a parent always has the right to appeal. The hearing officer can make a decision whether or not the student will continue, reduce the number of days, and so forth. But we stress to administrators to look at what the student has done, to try to but modify and work with the student on their behavior, because we don't want the student removed from class. The other thing that we ask them to do is to contact our parents immediately. And we've had that plan for years, where they were required to contact the parent when they're writing a referral, as soon as the referral is written. In addition, our district has a policy which was the backbone of the state law, where any student below third grade cannot be suspended or even placed in the ISS. So we have to look at other avenues in learning how to work with those students, if that answers your questions.
And ISS is in school suspension. Thank you, Ms. Felder. The technical assistance team has asked that everyone turn off your cameras to make it easier to identify individuals that have questions. So if you have questions, we definitely want you to keep your camera on so that we can see see you and acknowledge you. You also have the option to, in the reactions, at the bottom of the screen in a Zoom meeting, there is an icon for reactions. You also have an option there to raise your hand. So either turn on your camera so that we can see you, or use the reaction screen. But everyone else, if you don't mind to turn off your cameras, we're better able to identify those individuals that have a question. So we'll take another question. We're looking through right now to identify anyone that may have a question so that we can absolutely answer it. And I do not see anyone. Ms. De La Rosa, were you going to comment, or were you going to ask a question or provide some feedback?
It looks like she left the meeting.
She may, yes, she may have left the meeting. I don't see Ms. De La Rosa right now.
Okay, I saw her waving. Okay, maybe she was saying goodbye. Mr. Moore?
You're muted, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, and the issue of charters was brought up. That was a completely different program. I assure you, neither Ms. De La Rosa or myself would be sitting here supporting this plan if there was even the thinnest path to a charter school under it. Just want to make sure everybody was clear of it. It's a good, solid plan. Most of it's been in place for 5 years. The world hasn't ended. It's actually gotten better for my members in a lot of ways, whether it's healthcare or control of their grade books or not being evaluated on test scores. And it's gotten better for kids. So I hope the board approves it. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez? Did you have a question? Or?
You're muted.
Oh, I just wanted to comment. I think the way I interpreted Mr. Miranda's initial question was, were there any deliverables or metrics that were measurable on that item as well? And Dr. Brown, I think you and as well as Ms. Collins provided some really good information related to the initial phase of this and higher rates, whether kids graduated at higher rates because of what we're doing or whatever the case was. I think those are some of the deliverables he was also asking about. And so I just wanted to see if that was part of the clarification. But
Oh, thank you. And Ms. Miranda, we absolutely, during one of our committee meetings, we actually went through a very extensive presentation, identifying, some of the outcomes that we have experienced as a district with regard to the exemptions that we started in 2015. So that's what Mr. Martinez is referring to. So, but Ms. Collins did address that, in the last 10 minutes when she was responding to your question. So this definitely has been a benefit to EPISD school community. So it looks like we don't have any other questions, Sezi, and so I'll turn it over to you and we can close out our community meeting.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for attending, and I really, because everybody's taken the time to listen to the presentation, and we really appreciate the questions that were asked. I want to thank the committee for their hard work. I mean, many of these committee members are not EPISD employees, and they've given up their time, and we've had some really great, healthy discussions, disagreements sometimes with regards to how we got to where we are now. But so the process that I outlined earlier will continue, and ultimately it will go to the board to vote on it on May 11th. Dr. Brown, anything else?
That's it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.